Hello everyone and welcome to another video. You've just been watching me trying to take a picture of this stump that you can see behind me. I thought it was quite interesting with the fully grown trees surrounding it. So yeah, I've just been trying to get a shot of that. Anyway, in today's video, I want to talk about this camera right here. This is the Ricoh GR3 and I want to discuss whether it deserves the hype that it's currently getting online. To cut straight to the point, I would say yes, for the right person, this camera is worth the hype. But throughout this video, I want to discuss like who this camera suits and who it's aimed at. And basically, I just want to talk about how I found this camera over the past couple of weeks and hopefully try and help you make a decision if you're on the fence about purchasing this camera. So we're currently in a woodland area, which is called Snake Woodland. It's in the Peak District, just off Snake Pass. And yeah, I'm just gonna walk around here today, see what compositions we can come up with. And throughout this video, I'll talk about the good and the bad points about this camera, why I chose to purchase this camera and to add it to my kit, and yeah, just see what we can create. Also, you can probably tell by how wrapped up I am today, it is very cold out here. My hands are freezing, so I'm going to try and not stay out here too long. But yeah, winter is definitely setting in the UK right now. So let me briefly go over why I decided to purchase this camera and add it to my kit. So I've been looking now for something that is a little bit more compact compared to my Fuji X-T5 and just something that I can carry around with me a little bit more easily, a bit more every day, something that can go in one of my coat pockets or my jeans pockets. And basically the Ricoh GR was the camera that always kept coming up. Now that's not to say that the X-T5 that I do own is a massive camera, not by any means, but sometimes with certain lenses on it's quite bulky, and even if I decided to buy the 27mm pancake that Fujifilm make, it still wouldn't be as small as this Ricoh. Now there are other digital cameras out there, older ones, newer ones, but whenever I researched it, everyone would just say, oh, it's better to just go for the Ricoh instead. I was originally going to get the Ricoh GR 3X because that's a 40mm lens on that camera, and that's usually where I like to shoot. I usually like to shoot a little bit more cropped in, but I couldn't find the X in stock anywhere, so I decided to just go with the bog standard GR3, and it's actually been really nice to use, to be honest. So what made me go for the 3 in the end is I thought the wide lens would suit the, sorry, I'm like ducking and diving through all these trees here. I've not picked a great place to film, to be honest. So yeah, the reason I picked the 3 is I thought that the wide lens would kind of suit everyday situations. And I think it would suit them a little bit more than the 40mm would. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where to go here. I've not been to Snake Woodland for a long time, and it's been felled quite a lot since I last came here, and all the paths are like broken, and yeah, it's a bit crazy around here at the moment. I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, it's a bit tricky to get around at the moment. For fuck's sake. So apparently where I was going to go is closed off. Right, let me finish off my train of thought, and then we'll probably end up somewhere else in the Peak District at this point, because yeah, it's not that great around here at the moment. Right, okay, sorry about that. I was getting a bit confused as to where I was going now because everything's changed so much around here, and then the path down to the proper bit of the forest has been blocked off. So yeah, not a great success, this location, to be fair. So we're probably going to move on after this. But yeah, just summarizing what I was trying to say there. I chose the 3 in the end just because I thought the wider lens over the 40mm would suit everyday scenarios a bit more. You know, if you're in tighter like cafes and you want to take pictures in there and just, you know, like everyday stuff on like streets, I feel like this does come in handy a little bit more. It has taken me a few trips to adjust to shooting with such a wide lens. As I say, I usually shoot between 30 and 50mm on my Fujifilm. I do shoot quite cropped in usually. So this is quite a big change for me. But yeah, the ultimate reason for having this camera is so that I can take my camera out with me more often. So I wanted something that was the same quality as my X-T5, but as compact as my phone is. So this can fit basically in the same pockets that my phone can fit in, but it's got basically the same quality as my X-T5. It's not 40 megapixel, but the quality of this sensor is amazing. It's really, really impressed me. And having a sensor of this quality just in your pocket at all times is just amazing. Like, you can come away with shots that you might normally have missed, or you would have captured on your phone, but you might not have been as happy with the phone photography. So yeah, it's really interesting using this. I'm looking forward to getting to know it a little bit more over the next few months. But yeah, we're just going around today, seeing what we can take. Frustrating that this is now closed, this forest though, for the time being anyway. Not been here for around 3 or 4 years, so to come here and see a lot of the forest has been felled, it's just a mess around here. Like, yeah, it's not great. Okay, so you join me back in the van now. I've headed down to Castleton, so you just join me in a random car park in Castleton. So whilst I'm just warming up in the van for a minute, I thought it'd be a good idea to go over the positives and the negatives that I found whilst using this camera. Some of the negatives really are mainly just how dated it feels. This camera did originally come out in 2019, and they've released little different versions here and there and slight variations. And it has had software improvements over time. But there's just some little things that, coming from my X-T5, I miss on this camera. And they're mainly to do with autofocus. So the autofocus itself is fine. It's not going to blow you away. You know, if you've got like a modern camera like a Sony, Canon, Nikon, it's nowhere near as good as those cameras. But it does the job, and, you know, for day-to-day stuff or casual photography, it's absolutely fine. I've been using it in the single point autofocus, so it's just a little box that you get, and this is where my first negative comes. The autofocus box is really, really small. I'll put some little shots of the screen and how it looks just so you get an idea. It's a really small box and you can't adjust the size, whereas on my X-T5, and even when I had an X-T30 back in the day, you could adjust the size of that box to a small, medium and large box. And I think being able to adjust the size on this would be a positive, because you also don't have a joystick for focus control. So you rely on this D-pad, but the D-pad by default is shortcut buttons. So you have to like press a button, put it in the autofocus movement mode, and then you can move the box around. But because the box is quite small, if I quickly am like in portrait mode and the box is in the center and I want to put the focus point to the top of the screen, it's quite cumbersome. Another thing that I miss from my X-T5 is, it's a small thing, but I use it so often. In landscape and portrait orientation, it remembers where you put the autofocus box in that orientation. So if I'm in landscape and I've got the box in the middle, but then I switch to portrait, and in portrait I had it in the bottom third, it would remember that every time I went into portrait. So it's just, if you quickly need a shot and you need that focus point to be in the bottom third, it's so nice to just have it to go back to default to that point. I do feel like those could be put in software updates. So, you know, if Ricoh ever did see this video, like, it would be nice to have those features built in. As I mentioned briefly, I do miss having a joystick control, just to control focus. I have messed around with zone focus a little bit, but I tend to find that 1 out of 3 times it would focus on something that I didn't want it to. And again, I can't adjust the zone box. So it's quite a big box, the zone focus. If I could adjust that, I think it would really help me get more results with that autofocus mode. So I've kind of like ignored that for now. One thing that I have been doing is I've been leaving the center focus point in the center. I will move the camera to the focus point that I need and then recompose the shot, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I've been tending to do, just to speed things up a little bit, and that has been working really well, so that's good. I suppose another negative with this camera is it doesn't have a viewfinder, and I have found myself quite a few times bringing the camera up to my face, and then obviously it's just a screen, so I'm just blasting my eye with a screen. But yeah, I'm getting used to it now. I kind of feel like, I know some people do want a viewfinder on this type of camera, but you know, it'd have to be a little bit wider just to accommodate for the viewfinder on the side, or you'd have to have a slightly taller camera to have it on the top. But the more I shoot with this, the more I really do like using just the screen. And I found the screen perfect in bright sunlight, and yeah, it's always seems really viewable. I kind of like the idea of just it being more point and shoot, and it is more like using your phone. So, you know, how you can post shots on your phone is very much like that, and I do enjoy it with this camera. So I don't know whether the viewfinder is a negative or a positive for me, but I know people don't like the fact that it doesn't have a viewfinder. But yeah, you do get used to it over time. But yeah, if you don't like the idea of always using your screen, then this camera isn't really for you. And then I think the only other two negatives that I have is battery life can be a slight issue. It's not got a very big battery, so battery life, it's not the best. I can get a full day of shooting out of it, to be fair, if I remember to turn the camera off in between shooting. But as long as you've got like a power bank with you, or you've got a spare battery, you'll be fine. It charges quite quickly as well, and it's USB-C charging, so that's great. And then its biggest negative for me is it doesn't have any weather sealing. So on a day like today, where I was a little bit unsure whether it was going to rain, I was a little bit scared whether I could even use this camera outside. So if they ever did release a GR4, which I'm sure it will come in the future, I hope it has weather sealing, because that's its biggest downfall. I feel like that's going to limit how many days I can take this out. Obviously, if it's a downpour, I'm not going to be able to take this with me, so that is a shame. Right, so I got out of the van now just for a bit of change of scenery while I'm going through these points. Apologies if the light looks absolutely terrible. It is pretty grim today, and I feel like all of November has been grim. I feel like it's just been grey nearly every day. I think I've seen the sunlight for 2 days, and it's now like the 17th, I think, of November. So yeah, it's been a bit of a grim time in terms of like weather and getting out doing photography in nice weather. But yeah, anyway, just getting onto the positives for this camera. And its main one is just the size of it and the like portability. I'm not too sure whether I went through this when I was talking about why I purchased this camera, but I'll just go through it now anyway. Obviously, I've mentioned a few times that I'm trying to keep my kit as minimal as possible. And this allows me to literally just take out a camera in a tiny little sling bag. I can shove the DJI Osmo that I'm filming on right now into the same bag, put a mini tripod in there, and I can literally just go out with a mini sling and just have all the gear that I need to film and photograph for a YouTube video. Yeah, it's just like really refreshing just photographing like that. It just means that like gear doesn't get in the way of me taking photos. You know, I'm not having to take my bag off every time to get my camera out. I can literally just pull it out of my pocket or just keep it in my hand as I have now. Yeah, that's the main reason that I bought this camera, and the main positives for it. It's just its size. Next up, the picture quality, huge positive. I'm actually quite blown away by the quality of the images that come out of this camera. I think I might even prefer the files that come out of this to the Fujifilm, and I love my Fujifilm files, but the files in this are just really, really nice. I've not been using any recipes, so I'm just shooting raw, standard color profile. And then when I've been editing, sometimes I'll use some of the default color profiles that are in this camera because they show up in Lightroom if you shoot raw, just like on the Fujis. But yeah, I know a lot of people have success with the recipes, but for me personally, and I'm the same with my Fujifilm, I've never found like the recipes fun to shoot with. I've always loved the idea of having a JPEG that is just ready to go straight out of camera, but I've never found a recipe that suits the style that I'm after. So And then the last positive for me with this version of this camera, most of the versions, to be fair, they all have a built-in ND filter. And at first I thought, I don't know if I'd use that really. I've actually been using it quite a lot. I've been using it today, to be fair. I was torn between getting this or the new version that has the highlight diffusion filter. And I looked at a lot of reviews and a lot of image samples, and I just came to the conclusion that, like, I do like the look of the highlight diffusion filter, but I just don't know how often I'd use it. And on a day like today where there's not much sun, it doesn't really work. To be fair, like, most of the look you can kind of get in editing as well, just by reducing clarity and putting a bit of dehaze in there. And I will just touch on the image stabilization as well, just before we wrap the good and bad points up. Because it's such a small camera and it's such a small sensor, like, yeah, it's been really, really good. So, sorry, there was a person walking towards me and I got kind of flustered. But anyway, yeah, that wraps up everything I've got to say about the positives and the negatives about this camera. Yeah, when I first got this, I was a bit unsure if I was going to keep it, to be fair. First impressions were a bit mixed, but as I use it more and more, I'm just really enjoying it. And today it's been such a blast, like, carrying this camera around. And I don't know, it's just a different way of photographing, really. So yeah. So as I was walking down here, I've just remembered two more negatives. I know we were doing the negatives in the van, but yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up here. I really need to make sure that I do more notes when I'm doing YouTube videos. Most of the time I just wing it, write a tiny little bit of a bullet point and a bit of a script, and then I just go with the flow, whatever. When I first unboxed this, I did feel like it felt a little bit cheap. And for the money these cost, these are about £1,000 in the UK, brand new. And even on the used market, I tried to pick one of these up used for a while. Used, they're around £800. I saw some go for £900, and I was just, at that point, I was just like, what's the point in risking getting a used one? I might as well just spend the extra bit of money and get a brand new one. Sorry about that. People keep coming on this path now, and it's just really annoying. I've not seen anyone for ages, and as soon as I switch the camera on, like, people keep walking past. So yeah, I've moved slightly, just so I've got a better vantage point of whether people are coming or not. So yeah, anyway. So as I was saying, the build quality is not bad, but I do feel like maybe it was £700-800, I'd feel a little bit more like, I don't know, maybe the quality would reflect the price then. I know there's a lot going on in this camera and stuff, but yeah, especially because it's been out since 2019, this original one, I do feel like it could have had a bit of a price drop, but there's so much hype around this camera, and sometimes you can't even find them in stock. So I will say, if you're in the market for a Fujifilm X100, this is a competitor to that, and it is a bit smaller. I think the Fujifilm would have better build quality, but there's a higher price there. This is a lot more pocketable. I think the image quality would probably be on par. The Fujifilm probably has better autofocus, but I've never used an X100, so I can't really comment on that. Yeah, it's just something to mention. It is quite expensive. If you can find one on the used market quite cheap, then go for it. But anyway, I think what we'll do now, we'll start heading back to the van, and then I'll finalise my thoughts in the van and basically just go over who I think this is for. And yeah, we'll just finish the video there. So I'm back at the van now, and I'm absolutely freezing. It is so cold up in the Peak District today. Winter is definitely settling itself in now. So anyway, to wrap up, who is this camera for? So I would say if you're maybe a street photographer, or you're someone who is looking for a camera that you want your camera to be on you at more times and you don't want to rely on your phone as much, this is a perfect camera for you. I would say if you're looking for your first camera, or if you're just starting out with photography and you've got a camera, you might be better just getting a lens instead and building up your lens selection rather than buying this. For me, this is like the perfect fit for what I wanted. I wanted something that I can just shove in my pocket sometimes, or I can have a little sling bag like I've got today, and it just takes up no room at all. I've been carrying it around in my pocket today, even though I've got my sling bag. It's just been so easy to put it in my side pocket in this jacket and just pull it out whenever I need it. yeah, it's so good for that. But like I say, it's really good for street photographers. I know a lot of the street photographers like the snap focus feature on this, but it's just not something I've really used or got to grips with yet, so that's why I've not mentioned it much in this video. I think that wraps it up there. Like I say, I've been really enjoying this camera. You're probably going to see it more on the channel going forward. To be fair, like each time I go out with it, I fall more and more in love with it. Like today, I've just absolutely loved it. The fact that I've come out to do some photography today and I've just not had to carry that much stuff with me. I've got everything in one bag and everything's so easy to pull out. And, you know, if I need to do a quick shot on video, I can just whack my Osmo out and it's like super easy to set up and I'm recording in like a few seconds. And then with this camera, I can just pull it out of my pocket or just have it in my hand and like you don't even really notice it. So yeah, it's just so refreshing compared to like how I used to be a few years ago where I was carrying like a big backpack and I had all my lenses in it and stuff. And the more I do photography in this more minimalistic way, the less I want to carry a big bag around with me. So yeah, it's been really, really interesting. I'm falling in love with it. So yeah, to me, it is worth the hype, and I think to a lot of people, it will be worth the hype. Like I say, I know the price is a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, so, you know, if you can find one on the used market, but as I was saying, I could not find one, and I was looking for a few months. I think just because they're hard to get hold of in stock, like brand new, it brings up the price of the used market as well, so yeah, that's a bit annoying. So anyway, that wraps up this video now. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like. Leave a comment, tell me which images you liked the best. And if you want to see more videos like this, do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. As I said in my previous video, I'm trying to get 500 subscribers before the end of the year. I think we're on around 430 right now, so there's not too far to go. So yeah, if you are a repeat viewer, it really does help if you subscribe. So yeah, I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one.